A warm welcome and many thanks for joining us on today's edition of Democracy and the Rule of Law, a program where we'll take a look at topical national issues from the perspective of the law. My name is Judith Renoir, and on today's edition of the program, we're taking a look at the Bayelsa situation and the Supreme Court judgment which led to what is going on and what has happened in the state. Barely 24 hours to their swearing in as governor and deputy governor of Bayelsa State, the Supreme Court on Thursday nullified the election of former Bayelsa State Governor-elect David Lyon and his running mate Bio Barakuma Degi Eremionyo. A five-man panel of the Apex Court led by Justice Mary Peter Odili ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to withdraw the certificate of return issued to the All Progressives Congress's candidate who had been declared winners of the November 16, 2019 governorship election in the state. The Apex Court ordered INEC to issue fresh certificate of return to the candidate of the party with the highest, next highest vote and with the required constitutional spread of vote in the result of the election, which was the People's Democratic Party. Justice Ejembe Eko, who read the lead judgment of the Apex Court, made the others after disqualifying the APC deputy governorship candidate Degi Eremionyo as candidate of the election. The court went further to uphold the November 12, 2019 judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which had earlier disqualified Degi Eremionyo in the election for submitting first certificate of return, to INEC. Justice Eko disqualified Degi Eremionyo's candidacy on the grounds that he presented false information about his educational qualifications in Form CF001 submitted to INEC as a candidate for the 2019 election. He ruled that Degi Eremionyo's disqualification on the basis of submitting false information to INEC had infected the joint ticket with which he and Lyon contested the election and emerged victorious. Well, as usual on the table, our legal practitioners are here who will be taking a look at this particular judgment, what has transpired in the party, leading to the subsequent swearing in of the PDP's candidate, Diri Doye, as the new governor of Bayelsa State. You know, controversy here and there, reactions from the All Progressives Congress, protests in the state, as well as the lessons politicians and others who are aspiring for political offices need to take from this particular judgment. Thank you, Barrister Michael Woodland, for coming on today's edition of the program.
Thank you very much, Judith.
And Barrister Kingsley Chime, it's nice to have you.
Thank you so much.
All right. When this particular verdict came out on Thursday, it came as a rude shock to many people, including me. I was in the office, and it was quite disbelieving. That it's something nobody saw it coming. Diri Doye was had already done his rehearsals. Plans were underway for the swearing in, and boom, that judgment came. The question was, since David Lyon of the APC had no case, it was his running mate, why should he suffer the fate of his running mate? Can you break it down for us, Barrister Munan?
Thank you very much, Judith. You see, as we've said, it was really a very shocking judgment or news to us. And the unfortunate thing is that it came at just at the time that the governor-elect was about to be sworn in. And that made it very shocking to virtually everybody, considering the fact that there was no tribunal case that would have warranted him to have an uneasy. No, this particular case was a pre-election case that they had instituted before the election. So, but you see, the moment nobody is qualified to contest election as a governor of a state without a running mate, that is, without a deputy governor. If peradventure you contest without a running mate, it is presumed that you did not contest the election in law. Now, if you contest an election that you are qualified to contest and your running mate is not qualified to contest, it means that you yourself, you are not qualified to contest, because the disqualification of your running mate is going to affect you. It's a joint ticket, you understand, and the ticket belongs to the party. It is a party that you have actually infected, and your ticket in the party is gone. Now, the starting point is Section 182 of the Nigerian Constitution, Section 182, subsection 1J, says no person shall be qualified for election to the office of the governor of a state if the 1J says he has presented a forged certificate to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, that is the governor. But in Section 187, it says that in any election to which the foregoing provisions of this part, that is the part that concerns this, relate, candidates for the office of governor of a state shall not be deemed to have been validly nominated for such office unless he nominates another candidate as his associate for his running for the office of governor, who is to occupy the office of a deputy governor. You understand? Now, in subsection 2 of that 187, it says the provision of this part of this chapter relating to qualification for election, tenure of office, disqualification, declaration of assets, shall apply in relation to the office of deputy governor, as if reference to governor were references to deputy governor. That means that the moment your deputy is not qualified from the various qualifications that are listed in Section 182, then you yourself, you are not qualified, because it is what relates to the deputy governor that relates to the governor. What relates to the governor that relates to the deputy governor. You understand? So any ticket that the governor runs with the deputy, and any of them has any encumbrance or any fault, anything to disqualify them, that ticket is gone based on the provision of the law.
All right.
So that is exactly what happened here. But you see, nobody had expected. Nobody had expected, because from what we have seen, I know that Honorable Justice Inyangekwo of the Federal High Court is a very sound judge. Very many of his judgments are not easily flawed. But nobody had thought that the judgment that he gave disqualifying this man, the deputy governor of APC in Bayelsa State, would be affirmed by the Supreme Court. Know that the Court of Appeal set it aside based on the ground that he said all the names he said belonged to him, and there was an affidavit of reconciliation of names backing up these names, and that the documents were not really forged, but were said to emanate from him. The thing that surprises me is that how can you answer a particular name in primary school, a different name in secondary school, and a different name in university? How did you get into the university? Probably these are the issues that came before the trial judge that made the judge to say these documents were forged.
All right, then. Barrister Chibe.
Yes, okay, thank you so much. Let me begin by saying that, you know, the situation in Bayelsa State, particularly the APC candidates, will be likened to that of people of Israelites who saw the promised land but never entered there. It's an unfortunate development which I do not wish even my enemies. Yeah, it's unfortunate. However, the law is the law, and we have to be dispassionate about it. You know, what happened in Bayelsa State on Thursday was something that ought to have been foreseen. Let me give you a background of what transpired. Prior to the conduct of the governorship election in Bayelsa State, governorship candidates of all political parties were expected to fill in their forms in CF 001 detailing their academic qualifications and whatever. Now, the APC candidate, deputy governorship candidate, did fill those forms and attach some documents. Now, if you look at section 31, subsection 5 of the Electoral Act, and section 31, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act, that is the basis upon which PDP challenged the information supplied by the deputy governor of, governorship candidate of Bayelsa State, to the fact that he supplied false information. It's for the court to determine, among others, whether those certificates or information supplied by the deputy governor of Bayelsa State was proper. And the court did consider it. The matter initially went to pre-election matter. Yeah, it has also to do with election tribunal. This even precedes the election itself. Now, when the PDP went to court for determination of this issue, the trial court, that is the Federal High Court in Abuja, in fact, it was part of the judgment of Federal High Court in Abuja that the Supreme Court upheld. Yeah. The trial court said, based on the discrepancies on the information supplied by the deputy governor of Bayelsa State, APC, sorry, I'm sorry for that. Yes, the judge ruled that they were the information they were falsified. Yeah. And if you now look at the consequential effects of this determination, is disqualification. And now, just like my learned friend did say, if you have been disqualified to contest the election, what is the implication? It means that whatever vote or whatever vote that was ascribed to you goes to no issue, because you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. Now, the Supreme Court, of course, the matter subsequently went to Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal had a different approach to it. Yes. Court of Appeal said, based on the affidavits supplied, that affidavit has cured those irregularities. But the Supreme Court said no, that issue of certificate, name on the certificate, you don't cure such irregularities by affidavit. It is by deed pool. And for the fact that the deputy candidate of APC, or governorship candidate of APC, did not follow that procedure, you cannot correct such anomaly by affidavits. And you were disqualified. Wow. And the consequential effect is unfortunate that the governorship candidate, there was no issue to him. Yeah, but the position of the law, like he mentioned, section 187, if you look at 187, even 186 and 188 of the Constitution, it provides that governorship and deputy governorship candidates are like conjoined twins. What affects one will ultimately affect the other. So, since the deputy governor of APC in that state, had already been disqualified, the governor can no longer stand. That is exactly what happened. And I think the Supreme Court decision is meritorious, and I do not think any reasonable person will begin to find fault in the determination of the Supreme Court. All right, very well. Let's take a look at the appeal ruled upon by the Supreme Court as filed by the PDP, its governorship and deputy governorship candidates of the party. According to them, they allege in their suit, which originated at the Federal High Court in Abuja, that Degi Eremienyo, that is the deputy governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, presented to INEC document of academic qualifications with about 9 variations of names different from the name that appeared on his form CF001 submitted to the Electoral Commission. The names on the different documents attached to his form CF001 were said to be Bio Barakum Degi Eremienyo, Degi Bio Baraka, Degi Bio Barakuma, Adegi Bio Barakumo, Degi Eremienyo Wagaga. He was said to have claimed to have obtained his first school living certificate in 1976 and presented to INEC a first living school certificate of one Degi Bio Baraga other than the one bearing his name, Bio Baraga Degi Eremienyo, as shown in his INEC form CF001. He was also said to have claimed to have obtained his West African Examination Council General Certificate of Education in 1984 and presented to INEC a GCE certificate of one Adegi Bio Barakuo other than the one bearing his name, Bio Barakuma Degi Eremienyo, as shown in his INEC form CF001.
The Federal High Court had held that there was no evidence to prove that the documents with different name variations were his. Now, when this case was first filed, you said it is a pre-election matter.
Yes.
What should the party, the All Progressives Congress, have done? Was there anything they would have done to avert this fate?
Very well, Judith. You see, I want to believe that the Supreme Court is bringing this hard hammer on APC so that this impunity can stop. The moment you see that there is going to be any small dent on the candidacy of any of your members, it is very, very reasonable for the party to withdraw and replace the person at that point. This thing did not even start from the as at the time they said they had closed nomination, so that you could not present the party and the member of the party to INEC again. It happened before, and so they had the ample time to have replaced this deputy governor with somebody without issues with names. And they refuse. And just like, no, it is a normal thing that goes on in the Nigerian society. The moment somebody makes up his mind, especially in the political circles, that this person is the one they want, they continue to back up the person no matter how difficult it is for the person to go into the position. We have seen it in the presidency and all that. Once the presidency makes up mind that this particular person is the one they want for this position, nobody can say anything that would dissuade them from taking off the person. So the problem that we are having now was brought upon themselves by the party, APC itself. Because the moment they noticed that this man had some defects, some issues with his qualification and names, they would have looked for somebody else. They have several other people that are there. My only pain in this particular judgment is that the governor was qualified. Nothing made the governor nothing disqualified the governor. But because the deputy governor was not qualified, now the governor has gone. Ordinarily, one would have expected that since the deputy governor was not qualified to have contested the election, that the court would only disqualify the deputy governor. But because of the series of the cases and the series of provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act, it becomes difficult because it's a joint ticket. And anything that happens to one happens to the other. You understand? That is the challenge we have in this particular matter. And it's like APC did not foresee it. Because it just thought there's no big deal about it, we'll go through it and then come out on Sky. And that probably informed the reason that the man was rehearsing his inauguration the next day. Meanwhile, the case in the Supreme Court had been fixed for the previous day. Yeah. They were aware that that case was fixed for the previous day. And the PDP themselves, they were just taking a chance, thinking that probably we go there and win, and then I'm not sure they were prepared for the inauguration. Going by the appeal court. Yes.
So the APC was at rest at that point.
Yes. They thought that nothing will happen. They never knew that the kind of instability, the Supreme Court would destabilize them the way they did.
And something did happen.
Yes.
All right, Barrister Chime, before we go into the decision the Supreme Court made further, let's compare the Bayelsa APC scenario to what happened between the APC, that is James Faleke, and late Prince Abubakar Audu, that ticket. Yes. Is there a difference in the both scenarios?
Yes, there were differences. Faleke, that is, Faleke's own was a post-election dispute. At the time, Faleke, I think the governor then died. I think that's the position. Yes. The election had already been concluded. It was, I think, a runoff for a supplementary election. Yeah. But in this present situation or scenario, it is a pre-election matter. Okay. So the consequential effects are not the same. So these people, this man was not qualified to contest ab initio. So whatever the consequential effect is, that whatever happens, all the votes that were ascribed to him is wasted.
All right, would it have made any difference if they had been inaugurated before this particular Supreme Court verdict?
Definitely, it would have had the same effect.
Okay.
To have had the same effect, because you cannot, like I say, you can't put anything on nothing and expect it to stand. So if the election that brought you in was flawed, or you are not even disqualified to contest those elections, so you have no business being there. Okay. So nothing would have changed. My position would have remained the same.
Yes, I want to confirm that it would have been the same thing. And you see, in the case of Kogi State, the governor died while the election was still ongoing. It was not completely concluded, but it was seen that the governor was going to win. You understand? Before the man died, he was not disqualified. He died. You understand? And that was not supposed to have affected the ticket of the deputy. You understand? But because we had never had that kind of scenario before, the parties were looking for a way to bring in another person that was standing as a governor. And then they now decided to go and bring in the President Bello, that was
who came second in the primaries,
to now take over as the governor and ask the deputy to be his deputy, which he refused in any case. But the case of Kogi is quite different and distinct from this particular case. If in that case there was any issue that disqualified either the governor or the deputy, all of them, the two of them would have gone. But it was a case of somebody who just died before the time for the election was, the election results were concluded. Yes. All
right, the Supreme Court did, after disqualifying the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, David Lyon, and his running mate, did order INEC to issue a certificate of return to the party with the next highest number of votes and the constitutional spread, which is 25%. And INEC went ahead to say the Riduoye of the PDP met this constitutional requirement and sworn him in as a governor. But prior to that time, the chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adam Soshimele, said no one met this constitutional spread, and no one should be sworn in as a governor in Bayelsa State, because the PDP did not get this constitutional spread. Barrister Chime, do break it down for us. According to INEC, the valid and lawful votes cast in the election stands at 146,999. That is after excluding the over 400,000 votes the APC polled in that election, and thereby said PDP with the highest number of lawful votes, which is 143,172, was declared winner of the election. But the controversy has been there with the APC saying the PDP, insisting the PDP does not have the spread. Well, break it down for us.
Well, let me begin with a response to what the APC national chairman said. You know, I would excuse him. He's not a lawyer. So I think part of what he said was a reflex action. You know, he was surprised. He never expected what happened. So he went overboard. So I will excuse him for that. Then on the constitutionality or the propriety of the INEC's decision to calculate 25% of the remaining votes, which they agree that PDP met the constitutional requirement as to spread and coverage. You cannot at that point begin to calculate the votes that were cast on behalf of APC, because as a matter of fact, those votes they are wasted. You cannot begin to compute on wasted votes. So what INEC actually did, and which is proper, is to calculate based on the remaining votes after they had removed 300-something votes that were earlier ascribed to APC, and now came to the conclusion that PDP met the constitutional requirement. It is proper. There is no gainsaying about that. So I don't really understand why APC is interested in, trying to say that PDP didn't meet the requirement.
Yes,
even if another election, assuming without conceding that a Supreme Court had asked for another election, a rerun election, APC wouldn't have been part of the election. So what is their problem? But I'm not concerned about the reactions. I'm more interested in the legality or otherwise of the actions of the INEC, which they have complied to the decision of the Supreme Court. That is my position.
All right, and then you see, this position had actually been completely set up by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court confirmed the position in this Zamfara case, when the whole of all the party members in Zamfara were disqualified from the election because of what? The nomination process was flawed. They were not properly nominated, you understand? And because of that, they were disqualified from taking part in the election. And you remember what the court said? The court said all the votes that were cast for APC in that state, from the House of Assembly to the National Assembly to the governorship, were wasted votes. And so they were not reckoned with in the calculation of the next person that will occupy that seat. You understand? So I was surprised when I heard him, Adam Soshomole, that night saying that he had consulted with his lawyers, and the lawyers have told him that this is a position nobody is going to be sworn in because nobody is qualified. He couldn't have consulted the lawyers before making that statement. And you see, the kind of position that Adam Soshomole occupies is a very sensitive position, that he should not just make any statement as he likes. He has to consult the people that know, that have knowledge in this issue before he makes such an explosive statement. There is no lawyer who had been in this country when the Supreme Court pronounced on the Zamfara state issue that would have advised him that nobody else met the requirement, because all the votes that were cast for APC in Bayelsa State were not going to be reckoned with. You see, when the Supreme Court was giving the directive of what to do, it said they should now give the certificate of returns to the next person that has the highest number of valid votes. Valid votes. You understand? That means that all the votes that were cast for APC were invalid votes. They were wasted votes because the man, one of the deputy governor, was not qualified to have run the election, and that caused the votes to be invalid. That is the situation.
All right, Barrister Chime, would you say now Diriduoye has been sworn in as governor of Bayelsa State? Would you say he has the mandate? Let's talk politics now. Would you say he has the mandate of the majority in that state?
He doesn't. Like I said earlier, I sympathize with the people of Bayelsa State. Unfortunately, my sympathy is without any remedy. You know, the law is what it is. It has foisted on the people of Bayelsa State. You know, somebody who Bayelsa people never voted for. It is not in contention that APC won Bayelsa State governorship election, you know, but what became their fate subsequently is their own undoing. You know, but you know, we are growing, and I believe we'll come to that point. In fact, let me make it clear that what the Supreme Court has said, you know, let us remove sentiment into this. You know, our political system or politicians, they are in the habit, on the want of coming out with fictitious certificates. If the law is clear, even with the recent decision in Buhari and Atiku and Buhari, it is clear. You don't need to, you know, front all those qualifications which you never merited. Because if he didn't put all those things, there wouldn't have been an issue. The Constitution says once you are educated, you can read and write. You don't even need to attach any certificate. You know, but he went ahead to put, you know, your work, your first school living certificate. The name there is different from what you have in your WAEC, your West African Examination Council. The name there is different from your first degree. The name there is different from your master's degree. The name there is even different from your own affidavits. Series of affidavits. What does that tell you? You know, you cannot, like the Supreme Court said, that one person cannot be answering all these names. The Supreme Court used the adjective chameleonic. If you read that judgment very well, you know, because you just want to use any name for a particular purpose. It's fraudulent. That was the decision of the court. And before now, the Supreme Court had cause to say this. Permit me to read that a portion of the Supreme Court decision in the case of Sela and Abba.
All right.
It's reported in 2018. Part of the reasoning of the court is that the court said allowing criminality and certificate forgery to continue to percolate into the streams, waters, and oceans of our national polity would only mean our waters are and will remain dangerously contaminated. The purification efforts must start now and be sustained as we seek as a nation to now change from our old culture of reckless impunity. The Nigerian Constitution is supreme. So the Supreme Court is also trying to curtail the excesses of the political parties. And I think instead of APC or their sympathizers to be attacking the Supreme Court or attacking the decision, the findings, they should go inward. There should be a retrospection because it is their own undoing. They brought this upon themselves. Because otherwise, before the primary election, during the nomination, there were committees that screened all these candidates. Right. It doesn't mean that they never averted their mind to all these issues and inconsistencies in the certificate of a deputy governor.
Exactly the question I was going to ask. Who erred? Who derelicted in his duty of confirming all these forms?
You see, the challenge is that so many of these political parties, they don't even screen these candidates properly. What they need to do is to just have one big man there who says, this one is my own. Collect the decision and let him go. They have a screening committee whose members are supposed to sit and screen strenuously all the documents. But they don't. They simply carry the decision and push it to INEC, and before you know it, they start having problems. The challenge is also...
But is INEC not supposed to check this?
INEC is supposed to check, but you see, INEC, although empowered by the provisions of Electoral Act to disqualify based on the wrong disinformation and all that, the court has pronounced that INEC does not have that power to really disqualify. That it is only the court that can disqualify a candidate, and that is why if somebody petitions INEC that this person is has filed a wrong or forged document, INEC will simply advise the person go to court, because it is the court that can now pronounce on the disqualification of anybody. We don't have the authority to disqualify. Right. So that is the situation, and I want to believe that the petition was actually addressed to INEC, and INEC now advised PDP, the person, go to court if you feel this man is not qualified, and that started this whole legal battle.
Yes, just as an addendum to what he said, you know, INEC couldn't have rejected the certificates presented to it by the contestants in that election. What they did, and of course which the law permits them, is to publish. They publish those all those information provided by those candidates, and PDP had to pinch some holes from those qualifications. So that is what happened. If they had not, I still maintain that if APC deputy governorship candidates in that state had not put up all those things, there wouldn't have been any issue. Because the question as to whether you're educated is a conjecture. It's for the court to determine that. Yes. But putting all those things and then shooting yourself in the leg, you know, is unfortunate.
All right, so you're still watching Democracy and the Rule of Law, and we are dissecting the Supreme Court verdict on Bayelsa governorship election. We'll take a very quick break, show you the swearing-in ceremony of Diri Duoye of the PDP as governor of Bayelsa State. I'll be right back. The discussion continues. Just stay with us.
Bring the message of hope to Bayelsa State. We bring the message of prosperity to Bayelsa State. Therefore, let us eschew bitterness and acrimony and learn to love ourselves, whether of the same party or of different parties. Primarily, we are brothers and sisters from Bayelsa State. And our creed today is to serve you. Like the immediate past governor will say, our leader, whom God gave wisdom, that he who serveth men well serves God well.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear
That I'll be faithful.
that I will be faithful
And bear true allegiance.
and bear true allegiance
To the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
That I'll preserve.
That I'll preserve,
Protect.
and
defend.
defend
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, so welcome back, and that is the new governor of Bayelsa State, Diri taking his oath of office in Bayelsa State on Friday, a day which was meant for David Lyon and the APC, but the court judgment did thwart that plan. All right, let's look at a protest in Bayelsa State, the destruction of the state-owned radio station, the destruction of Diri's private residence, and that of the former governor of the state, Siraki Dixon, amongst others. What would have been the appropriate quarter or the means for these aggrieved people to channel their grievances rather than going the path of what do I call, well, just go ahead.
You see, violence is
violence.
Yes, violence is never a solution to any challenge, any situation, any problem. There's no way you want to take the laws into your hands and expect the law to be on your side. If those people that went to destroy, set ablaze the radio station and all the houses and all that are caught, they will pay dearly for it because it is against the law. Now, once the Supreme Court has pronounced on an issue, that issue is terminated at that point. You cannot go to any other place. Like some people are saying they want to go to United Nations, they want to go to embassy and all that, like PDP did in the respect of Imo State and all that. It's a wrong procedure. It's a wrong procedure. And what you need to do is to just ask God, God, give me the grace to know the right thing to do next time, because this one has gone. And these people that are even thinking of going to the Supreme Court to set it aside, they are just wasting their time. You see, the Supreme Court is infallible because it is final. It is not final because it is infallible. Once the Supreme Court has pronounced on something, you cannot go back to the Supreme Court and tell the Supreme Court, change it for me. Another party, another case, if it has the same facts with the particular case that is an issue here, once the party gets to the Supreme Court, you can now say, although this case that was decided is in all fours with my own, and you decided this way against this, I want you to reverse yourself because you decided in Korea, you did not take some things into consideration. And so we want you to reverse yourself in this case. The court can look at it and reverse, really reverse itself. That is the Supreme Court. Reverse itself in that particular case. In the case on another case, you understand, and reverse itself in the previous case. Not that same party going back to the Supreme Court to ask the Supreme Court to reverse itself in that case. You understand what I'm saying now? So it is practically difficult, and I find it funny that lawyers know very well the way the Supreme Court guards its jurisdiction. They know very well that if the Supreme Court has pronounced that this person is a governor and there is no appeal against it to any other place, the Supreme Court cannot at the same time turn around to say he is not the governor. Because how do you expect the governor who had been sworn in to be removed by the same Supreme Court? It would make no sense of the judicial system, and the whole world would just look at us as caricatures. So it is practically impossible, including the one of the Imo State that they are talking about. It's practically impossible for the Supreme Court to reverse itself. And I want to wait and see what is going to be the outcome of that case. You might discover that the Supreme Court is going to award penalty against even the lawyers that are bringing that case back to the Supreme Court for a review.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let me say that protest in and of itself is not wrong. It is violent protest that is the question.
Okay.
I recall that when the Supreme Court gave the decision on Imo State, there were protests. I can't recall if there was any violent protest. Yeah. Now APC their supporters or sympathizers had gone to destroy public properties in order to express their grievances. And I think it's very dangerous for us as a nation, and it's very dangerous for our democracy. Supreme Court, like he properly said, is the final court of the land. His decision is final in the true sense of finality. Yes, they are human beings. They can err. They can make mistakes. You see, when PDP said they didn't agree with the Supreme Court, that Supreme Court may have overlooked certain things, and they went back to Supreme Court to say, look, based on this, do you think it's still possible for you to reverse yourself? It has been done. It is not out of place. So I think we should also be able to protect our own judiciary, because the recent event, has shown that it appears, every decision Supreme Court gives, people come out with a lot of criticism, people go to the street to protest. That is not the proper thing to do. Forgetting that, the Supreme Court, like they said in one of the decisions they gave, that those who have benefited from the benevolence of the judiciary should resist the temptation of emasculating that same judiciary. I'm sure whether you are for PDP or you are for APC or wherever you belong, Supreme Court has consistently been giving decision, and it is final. We have to respect that. If we have any groups, some of those areas we have pointed out, the legislature should go or take steps towards amending those laws to conform with our own
present-day realities.
Yes,
yeah.
so that's my point.
Now, do you think it is Hurriyet for the governor of Bayelsa State? You remember?
Yes.
There's a suit in court. Timi Alaibe is challenging his candidacy. And
I wanted to even say that it is not yet Uhuru for the governor of Bayelsa State, because the case that is still in court is also tainted with issues of qualification and disqualification and all that, and that the primaries were not properly done and all that, just like what we had in Zamfara State. And so if at the end of the day the court decides that the primaries were improperly done, it means that the governor and anybody that came in through that system will have to give way. But the challenge will now be, who will be the next governor? Because they will have to conduct a fresh election.
No, that's not going to happen.
Because the governor of the governorship candidate of APC had been disqualified. The governorship candidate or the members, governorship candidate of PDP disqualified. You understand? If it gets to the Supreme Court in that effect and it is done, but I doubt whether that will be done, because I have seen that, I have read that there are some moves all over the place to assuage Timi Alaibe to go and withdraw the suit in court. And in fact, that suit would have gone far by now, if not that he started petitioning the judge that sat over the matter and all that, and the matter had to be sent back for reassignment, moved from one point to the other, to Abuja or to Owerri and all that. So that is the reason that case is still lingering. But as I have said, they should not just go and rest. They should do serious work now to ensure that that case is withdrawn, to allow them to focus on governance. Because as my colleague has said, this particular governor was not elected by the majority. So the majority are aggrieved. They are not happy with the system. He has to do something to show that he is able to perform. He is able to meet up with the yearnings of the people, so that the people will now look and say, well, we made a mistake and all that. It's even good that God now foisted this one on us, because we would know what would have happened if it was Lion that they call him, that was the governor. You understand? So the people, those in PDP should work very hard to ensure that there are no crises in the state, to ensure that people that are aggrieved are pacified, to ensure that they bring good governance to the people, so that if they want to, they can, because they discover that it was PDP that has always been in power, and the people just wanted a change, just like in any normal setup, and then they voted APC. If they now want that continuation, they should do very well. They should not behave like their predecessor, who went into that place and did all manner of things that I read about. I've never been there and all sorts. So I think it is time for them to really sit up and know that it is not yet Uhuru for them. All
right, let me give you a brief, let's give our viewers at home a brief summary of why I asked that particular question. The governor of the state, Diri Doye, faces another legal battle. He has a new date with his ACT rival, Timi Alaibe, who has asked the Federal High Court to declare him as the validly nominated candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the state. Timi Alaibe is a former managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. Alaibe, in his prayers to the Federal High Court, Yenagoa, said that the PDP primary in the state was manipulated and held through a flawed process, thereby calling for the cancellation of the result and setting aside the submission of Diri Doye's name to INEC by the PDP as its gubernatorial election. Now, loyalists of Alaibe are even more motivated, since, according to them, the nullification of the victory of David Lyon of the APC was sealed as a result of pre-election matter. And the new governor might as well be a caretaker governor to them. Vice Chairman, do you agree?
I feel that it is Uhuru for any issue arising from the gubernatorial context in Bayelsa State.
Why do you say so?
Settled with finality. Yes, you know, the issue that Timi and his lawyers are raising is no longer a good law. Present amendment of the Constitution. That used to be the case in Amechi and Omehia. That had been settled. You know, I feel that any other suit, any other pending matter, you know, arising from this election, Bayelsa State election in November last year, you know, has become spent and merely academic. I think the lawyer should take the appropriate measure to file necessary application for that matter to be dismissed. You know, there should be an end to litigation. We cannot continue to be in court forever. You know, that is also distracting, like he said. There should be an end to litigation. And if we are not careful in this country, politicians will destroy this nation. It's unfortunate that nobody wants to accept defeat. If you lose in the primary election, you go to court. If you lose in the major election, you go to court. Everybody is going to court and creating all sorts of confusion. And these judges or justices, they are humans. They are human beings. And the workload and everything, so we have to help ourselves. We shouldn't make it a culture that every election must end at the Supreme Court. There's no need for that. We will not make any progress. So I believe that that issue, whatever, I'm not privy to the fact of that case, but I believe that that issue has become academic based on the latest decision of the Supreme Court. That should end every other grievances arising from that election.
I think I did not even avert my mind to the aspect of the timeline that you have to file any pre-election matter and the time that it has to progress to the Supreme Court and come back. You understand, it is time bound, and the moment you don't meet up with that time, it is spent. So this one is like an academic issue in the court, as it were, because it cannot go to anywhere. The time that the Federal High Court is supposed to have decided it, the 60 days, had since been spent. And so even if the Federal High Court now decides on it, it is as an academic issue. It would not have any effect again. And I'm sure the Federal High Court would actually say that I decline jurisdiction because I no longer have jurisdiction to pronounce on this issue. So I think, and another thing is that even if, I now discover that, even if the decision were to go against the present governor, it is still PDP that will be sworn in. You understand? Not APC. But the challenge is that, as my colleague has said, the issue of Amechi, because that is exactly what had been destroyed by the amendment to the Constitution. So you cannot no longer benefit from an election you did not start.
All right.
Throughout.
All right. Moving on. Our time is almost spent. What other lessons? What lessons can we learn from this particular verdict? I talked about the timing of this, which many people are saying the judiciary needs to work on that, expedite, its decision on cases, the way, timely manner in which it disposes of this case. What lessons, moving on, Barrister Chime, can politicians, people who are aspiring for political offices, and even those who are not, what lessons can they learn from the Bayelsa scenario?
Okay, I think it was Socrates who said that an unexamined life is not worth living. So I feel that the politicians in Nigeria should, as a matter of necessity, examine and continue to re-examine their lives. And when I mean examine with the context of their lives in the public, they are causing a lot of havoc in the society. They should be able to, put the society in the perspective that it ought to be. If you look at some of these issues arising from election, they cause them. It is self-inflicted. So I think they should look inwardly. And secondly, it's overdue for us to amend or to have electoral reforms. There are a lot of pitholes here and there, which lawyers or politicians
take advantage of.
Yeah, so it's overdue. So we should look at all these dynamics holistically and be able to come to terms with the reality. But most importantly, the politicians or those in government should be able to to pretend over these amendments and issues surrounding it. All
right, yet again, the APC suffered another big blow. Do you think going on to the elections in 2023, they have really learned their lessons and will put their house in order as it is now?
I don't think these political parties or the politicians learn any lesson. The only thing we want to see is amendment to the laws, electoral laws and the Constitution, that would guide the Supreme Court in pronouncing, or the courts in pronouncing on the impunity and whatever the political parties or the politicians do. We can see that these politicians, they don't learn from previous happenings. They just continue to wallow and continue to wallow in the process. They commit so many mistakes. I want to believe that if the political parties will sit down and appraise the issues that are involved, that evolve out of the various judgments, Supreme Court judgment, they would not involve themselves in impunity. The moment somebody has any dent in respect of any qualification, they will look at it very well, and then they push the person aside. And you have to look and screen properly all the candidates that you have in your election to be sure that nobody has any dent somewhere that would disqualify the party at the end of the day. A lot of money is spent in election. It's not something that somebody will invest so much money at the end of the day. Because of the mistake of one person, the whole party is now disqualified. There should be punitive measures. There should be punitive measures for people who were supposed to carry out, like the screening committee. There should be punitive measures for the screening committee members who did not screen this man very well, to ask him and bring in somebody else and allow him to contest the election and brought this kind of disaster to the party. There should be punitive measures for them. And all the people that were involved should be punished by the political parties.
All right, Barrister Chime, let me quickly ask this. Do you think the running mate of the APC candidate in Bayelsa State has a case to answer?
Oh, sure he did. It is manifestly clear. You know, it's even the blind can see. If you look at what the Supreme Court inferred from some of those documents they produced, is that one man cannot be answering those more than 7 or 10 different names. You know, and part of the affidavits, you know, publication amendment is trying to patch. You know, they are trying to cover. So, you know, when you have already told a lie, you need a lie to cover a lie. So it's a continuous process, and along the line, you know, they ran into trouble waters. So I think, in fact, the APC have not even challenged whether these things were falsified. They didn't. It was not an issue they contested in court at the appeal, because if that was the case, Supreme would have looked at it differently. So it's like they considered that these documents were falsified, and based on that, Supreme Court said the consequential effect is that it will be disqualified, and the implication is far-reaching. I hope, like he said, that they have learned their lesson, and other political parties have also learned their lessons. You know, you have to put your house in order. Yes.
All right, we have to go. Our time is spent. Thank you for joining us on today's edition of Democracy and Rule of Law. Thank you, Barrister Michael Munnen and Barrister Kingsley Chime for coming on the show. My name is Judith Renua, and I do hope you have a clear perspective on the Supreme Court verdict on the Bayelsa governorship election. And also, you've learned one lesson or the other as to the case. I have. And thank you once again for joining us on the show. My name is Judith Renua. Do join us at 1 p.m. next Sunday for another